vehicle pulls up alongside, and the driver shoots numerous times into the vehicle.
Biggie was shot multiple times while sitting in the front passenger side of this SUV.
When somebody's shooting at you, your first reaction is not to get a description of them, but to take cover, duck.
LAPD knew exactly what was going on all the way to the very top.
The truth is out. After years of struggle for her son's wrongful death, Biggie's mom reveals that the reinvestigation closed because LAPD were playing behind the scenes. Yes, you heard that right. The Guardian organization went back on their oath and covered up the saddest tragedy in pop history. What really happened, and how did LAPD get away with it for so long? Let's investigate together. The original suit filed in 2002 by members of Mr. Wallace's family, including his mother, Voletta Wallace, and his widow, Faith Evans, accused the Los Angeles Police Department of covering up police involvement in the killing. Both sides have accused the other of not playing fair. Judge Cooper concluded a mistrial. The police had intentionally withheld evidence. She later ordered the city to pay the estate $1.1 million in legal fees. But it was the second amended lawsuit against the LAPD worth $500 million, which really proved evidence of police corruption. Even Ice Cube feels the same way.
Who killed Tupac and Biggie? I think both of these dudes were assassinated in some kind of way, but Biggie's seems a little
JFK.
Governmental to me.
Fans also see eye to eye with Miss Evans. Hashtag who shot Biggie and Tupac. I've also learned the LAPD has and still is covering up the Biggie's murder because LAPD officers were involved. Another tweeted, hashtag Unsolved USA is immediately getting to the hidden accusations of Biggie murder. The LAPD were involved and Hang affiliated themselves. I knew it. The investigative journalist Broomfield, who made 2002 documentary Biggie and Tupac, said aspects of the killing suggested police involvement rather than a gangland shooting. I think that does involve members of the police force. It's a very significant murder. It was an incredibly neat executed murder, which didn't have any of the signs of a gang killing, which is typically spraying a car with bullets. But that is not all. Broomfield said that he returned for a follow-up documentary after Biggie and Tupac because he was pissed off about what was being portrayed about the wrong suspect, and now half of the world believes it. He wanted to publicize the right suspect because he owed it to Miss Wallace and his former comrade, Russell Poole. Now you had half of America believing in something that was clearly not true. That was my motivation. I was fairly annoyed by what had happened, and I just felt Russell deserved something better, and so did Voletta, and so did the Biggie estate. They deserve some kind of closure. Detective Greg Kading sympathizes with the sentiment, as he also holds Voletta Wallace to a high regard.
I love Voletta Wallace. I from the very beginning, me and my partner, that was our sole motivation, was to give her the answers that she deserved.
While her heart suffers every day for the loss of her only son, she firmly believes that LAPD definitely mishandled her sole son's case. I have a very good idea who murdered Christopher, and I genuinely believe that the LAPD know exactly who did too. They've done their investigation, but they just refuse to move forward. I don't know why they haven't arrested who was involved. It seems to me that it's one giant conspiracy, and someone is definitely being protected somewhere down the line. And later, when this hopelessly broken-hearted mother took back her case against LAPD, Greg Kading believes that the organizations had successfully erased their traces and were very confident in winning the case.
And the LAPD and the city of Los Angeles and their attorneys were like, ain't no way. We're not settling for a dime. We are going to trial, and you're going to have to try to prove what you're alleging, or you don't get a dime, because we're not settling. Now, for an agency to do that, they have to be extremely confident that they're going to win in trial.
The documentary played an instrumental role in case development as the FBI members started to investigate the potential involvement of officers in the murder case. Even though legally the involvement of officers David Mack and Rafael Perez, the former Death Row producer and Crips gang bodyguard C-Style claimed, I saw David Mack. I hung around with Rafael Perez. They were not different to us, except they had badges. We did it. And both the accused officers were said to be near the Peterson Automotive Museum in LA on the night Biggie was killed in a drive-by shooting. as reported by an anonymous source. And to add to that, emotional interviews and graphic pictures in the documentary also lay bare the descent of death row records into a debauched hub for gang members, including unseen pictures of Tupac and Knight partying with naked women in the labeled offices. According to Broomfield, both murders of Tupac and Biggie are related and are essentially the collateral damage in the gang wars.
Both of whom, in a sense, paid for their art by both being killed. They got caught up in a gang war, really, that had nothing to do with either of them.
In an interview with Daily Mail, the director of documentary confessed that there was undeniable evidence of foul play against the accused LAPD officers. Particularly in the case of Biggie Smalls, there are strong indications that LAPD officers were involved in that hit. The killing was orchestrated and the hit was put out by Suge Knight. At the time, he was in prison, but he placed the hit. He did that as a revenge killing for Tupac being killed. Further in the interview, he revealed that the officers were on death row's payroll, even if the organization pleads not guilty.
I think the connection between Suge Knight and the rogue police officers who were working off duty for death row is undoubtedly completely established.
The detective Kading has some similar results in his investigation as well.
The time that Biggie Smalls was killed, Suge Knight was in the county jail. So in order for him to communicate with somebody on the street, he had to go through an intermediary, which was this female who was visiting him in jail.
And according to Detective Kading, the female third party met with the alleged hitman Poochie and handed all the transactions in Suge's head.
Kading says the woman would visit Knight pretending to be a legal assistant.
That allows her to go in, sit down with Suge, and have unmonitored visits. Deputies can't overlisten on the phone. They can't stand there and overhear the conversation.
Aside from the fact that the female third party exchanged the information for her safety, it looks like everything in the universe was trying to cover up this murder. The organizational corruption did not end with the labeled officers. The FBI was also deeply involved in it. According to a former head of the FBI's Los Angeles field office, Philip Carson, he had enough evidence 15 years ago to file charges against two crooked LAPD officers over the killing of Biggie Smalls. But unsurprisingly, his bosses at the time shut down his investigation due to pressure from the LAPD. But he did not stay put and accepted fate. When the federal agent retired, he took with him almost 3,000 pages of case documents and told his story to filmmakers who made an upcoming movie, City of Lies, starring Johnny Depp about the case. Carson told one of the movie's producers, Don Sarkowski, that his documents could rock the foundations of LA's law enforcement in a tape shared with Sun Online. LAPD, all the way to the very effing top, knew exactly what was going on. They briefed on certain stuff. I met with them, and for them to say anything different, I could prove to you not only how they knew, but how they obstructed this case and how they completely derailed it. It's hard for me to even explain how amazing it is what they did. In addition to that, Carson also believes that the senior members of the LAPD conspired with his bosses at the FBI and prosecutors to keep his evidence secret. The top officials were trying to save the city from bankruptcy after Biggie's mom, Valletta, filed a $500,000 lawsuit over her son's death and didn't want him testifying. The author of the book containing Carson's take on the case, Randall Sullivan, says, the LAPD was at risk for ceasing to exist. The financial hit of the lawsuit was going to be so enormous. There were already preliminary plans for either the sheriff's department or the federal government to take over the LAPD because the hit and the legal consequences were going to be enormous. And as the author predicts, the case can be refiled with added criminal charges. Perry Saunders, one of the attorneys of the rapper's family, said they believe Carson's explosive claims and were deciding whether to take action or not. We are digesting this stuff. Obviously, it's disturbing that the behind-the-scene action was so intense and was designed to avoid a murder being prosecuted. Phil was an honest cop from all I knew, straight shooter. I'd believe whatever he says about this. He has no reason to lie. Even though Phil's story coincides with that of Detective Kading's story, there's a new name that has popped up in his findings. The formal FBI request penned by Carson reads, Amir Muhammad, aka Harry Billups, the godparent to LAPD officer David Mack's 2 children, has been identified by several sources as the trigger man. Mack is a registered owner of a 1995 black SS Impala with chrome wheels, the exact description given as being driven by Wallace's shooter. In an interview with All Hip Hop, the former agent revealed that there were certain things that were being withheld by LAPD. Moreover, they were not even allowed to take photos of the pictures present in their files.
LAPD had that in their file, and then there were certain things that were made part of the FBI file.
You saw the actual footage or the actual picture of Amir Muhammad, lurking around the
Correct.
Peterson.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Carson also revealed that the original target was not Biggie, but Sean Puffy Combs, who was in the vehicle ahead of Biggie's SUV on the night of the murder. He also shared this information with Combs, and the record label executive was pretty freaked out to learn that he was the intended hit. That's it for today, folks. Until next time, goodbye.